In this episode, I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about a string in Python programming language. If you want to learn more about Python and other programming languages such as C#, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed the video, please like it. It will be a great support. Let's begin. In Python, you can define a string by using single quotation marks or double quotation marks. For example, I write A equals to welcome, or B equals to welcome, and I want to print A and then print B. Okay, and you see they're the same. And you can also inside print function, you can also use single quotation marks or double quotation marks. For example, here you see there is no error. And also we can use double quotation marks. You see, they are both working. You can also assign a multi-line string to a variable by using 3 quotes. For example, you can write A equals to, you can use 3 quotes and write, for example, welcome to my channel and do not forget to subscribe. Okay, this is actually 2-line string, and I have to use 3 quotes, and then I can print this variable, and you see it is working. So if you want to use multi-line string, you have to use 3 quotes. Like other programming languages, the strings in Python are arrays, and however, Python does not have a character data type, and single characters are actually a string with length of 1. And in order to access the elements of a string, each character of a string, you can use square brackets. I'll show you how you can use this. For example, I want to define a new string like x equals to welcome. Okay, and then I want to just print w. I use a print function, and I use also square brackets. I just need to give the index of the character that I want to print. So here I give 0 in order to print w. You have to bear in mind, keep in mind that the strings, like other programming languages, the strings start with 0 index. And for example, you see here, if you want to print w, you have to use 0 index, and if you want to print E, you have to use a 1 index, and L 2 index, and so on. So here I want to print W, so I have to use 0 as my index. And if you want to run it, you see W is printed. Sometimes you want to print the length of a string. You want to see how many characters are in your string. You can simply use len function. I'll show you. For example, here we have a string like X, and I want to see how many characters are there in my variable. So I just need to write a print and use len function, and as a parameter I have to pass my string, and then I just need to run it, and you see 7 characters are in my string. As you see here, 7 are right here. If you want to check whether a phrase or a character is present in a string, you can use in keyword. I'll show you how you can use this. For example, I write if w in x, okay, I need to print w is available. Okay, as you see here, because w is actually available in x variable, so this condition is true, and it enters this block of code, and this code is executed. You can also print the result. For example, I write print and I write w in x. So you see true. This is a result of this statement. You can also use not in if you want to check whether a certain phrase or character is not present in a string. You can use the keyword not in. For example, here, as we saw in our x variable, w was available. However, there is no z in this string. So let's try to see whether there is a z or not. For example, I write print, and I want to see whether z is available or not. I see z not in x, and that's true because there is no z in this actually variable. And if I write print z in x, I actually expect to see a false as a result. As you see here, there is a false. Suppose you have a string and you want a range of character of that string. You don't want, for example, one character or the whole string. You want, for example, 2 or 3 characters of that string. You can use slicing. Actually, in other words, you can use slice syntax. Let's see how it works. For example, x equals this string, hello world. Okay, and then I want to print just, for example, H, E, and L. How I can do this? I can use square brackets, and I have to specify the start index and the end index and separate these indexes by a column. For example, here x, I use square brackets, and then I have to define the start index and the end index. And you have to bear in mind that the end index does not include in that string. Let's see, for example, I want E, L, L, and O. E, double L, and O. I have to define the start index, which is 1, and use colon, and the end index, which is 5. Let's run it. Oh, we see H here. Why this happened? Because here there's a space, and this space is index actually 0, and H is index 1. And if I don't want that space, I have to delete space and again run it, and you see ELLO is printed. If you want to slice from the start, you can actually leave out the start index, and actually the range will start at the first character. For example, in here I want a range of strings that start from beginning, so I delete this. I don't need to actually specify the start index, and it will start from the beginning. Let's see. Here hello is printed. For example, let's change it to, for example, 7, and again it starts from beginning. And you can also slice to the end by leaving out the end index this time. For example, print x, and you can specify the start index, for example 3, and you have to leave out the end index. You don't need to actually write anything. So if I execute it, you see it starts from index number 3 and to the end. Okay, this is index number 3 and to the end. You can also use negative indexes. If you use negative indexes, you can start the slice from the end of the string. Let's see an example. In this actual variable, which is x, I write print x, these square brackets, and I use negative indexes. For example, let's use for example -4 and -2. Okay, let me just give you more information about these indexes. As you see here, D is actually index -1, and L is index -2, R is index -3, and so on. For example, L is -2 and R is -3, and so on. Also, like positive indexes, the actually end index does not include in that actually range of string that we want to extract from our original string. Okay, So in here, if I use -2, let's see the results. As you see here, a -2, which represents this actually character, which is L, is not printed here because -2 does not include in that range of a string. Okay, Python has a set of actually methods that you can use in strings. For example, let's define a string x equals to our previous string, like hello world. Hello, let's use a comma, world. Okay, and now I want to use some methods. For example, first I use print, and I want to change all the characters to uppercase, so I have to use a built-in method x dot upper. Okay, and if I run it, you see all the characters are changed to uppercase, and I can also change all of them to lowercase. I just need to write x dot lower, and this time all of them change to lowercase. Well, sometimes there are some white spaces before and after the actual text, and sometimes you want to get rid of these spaces. In order to do that, you can use a strip function. Let's see, let's define a string like x equals to, again, hello world, and I use some spaces here and maybe also at the beginning. Okay, and I want to get rid of these white spaces. You know, when I want to print something, print x dot, I use strip, and now all these spaces are gone. Another method that I want to show you is replace, which is actually used frequently. If you want to replace a character or a set of characters in a string, you can use replace. For example, let's print something. I want to print x dot replace. Okay, I want, for example, h to be replaced by, for example, o. Okay, and you see it changed. And I want to, for example, change a set of characters like h, e, l, l to, for example, o, p. As you see, it changed. And the number of characters that I have with the number of characters that I want to change actually are not necessarily equal. Okay, so you can, for example, change 3 characters by just 1 character. If you have a string and you want to split this string to some items and some small strings, you can use split method. Let's see an example here. For example, we have a string x, and I want to split this to actually a list. Let's see how we can do this. For example, I use another variable like b equals to x dot split. Okay, and then I want to print b. As you see here, it returns a list. And as I taught you in previous lessons, I can actually get each item of this list into separate variables. For example, I can use a b and c equals to x dot split. Okay, and I want to print each of them separately. So if you see here, each of them are in separate variable. If you want to concatenate or combine 2 strings, you can use a plus operator. For example, here we have b and c variables, and I want to combine them, concatenate them into one string. I use a equals to b plus c, and if I print a, you see here is the concatenation of b and c. As I told you in previous sessions, you cannot combine a float or integer with a string. For example, sometimes you want to print a variable and a string together, and how we can do this? In order to do this, you can use format. Format is a function that allows you to format selected part of a string. Sometimes a part of your string is coming from database or user input or a variable that I used before. So we used curly brackets and use this format to actually replace that curly bracket with the variable that we want to actually use. For example, here we have a variable like price equals to, for example, 100, and then we have a text like the price of this product is, I use curly bracket, and then if I want to print this text, I use text dot format. Now I can actually pass this variable, which is price, and then it will be replaced by the curly bracket. As you see here, 100 is replaced by this curly bracket. I can also change the format of this variable in this curly bracket. For example, I use a format like this, and as you see here, the format is changed and 2 zeros are added after this point. You can also use other formats. If you want to use more variables, you have to add more values to the format method. For example, here you have price, and you can add numbers which actually represent the numbers of products. For example, 3, and you can add this here, add numbers, so, and also add a curly bracket. For example, I added here the price of these, for example, number of products, or the price. So you have to keep in mind that if you want to use this format, you have to obey the actually sequence of these variables. They will be replaced by curly brackets respectively. So here actually price will be replaced by the first curly bracket, and numbers will be replaced by the second curly bracket. So if you want to actually use them, you have to keep this in mind. So I have to replace this one with the first one, and now I can actually run it, and you see here 3 is replaced by this curly bracket. And if you want to avoid such mistakes, you can use index. For example, here the index of number is 0 and the index of price is 1, and if I want to replace price with this curly bracket, I have to actually write 1 inside these curly brackets, and if I want to replace numbers by this one, I have to use a 0. And as you see here, price is replaced by the first one and numbers is replaced by the second one, which actually does not make sense in this sentence. I have to use 0 and 1 here, and now it is actually true. You can also use named indexes by entering a name inside these curly brackets instead of those indexes, but you must use names when you pass the parameter values. For example, in here you have to actually use numbers equals to 3 and price equals to 100. You have to delete these, you don't need them. And in here, in the first curly bracket, I use numbers, and in the second one I use price, and you see it is working. So if you want to use named index, you have to pass parameters with value to this format and use the name of the variable in these curly brackets. You can use as many as curly brackets and variables as you want. There is no restrictions. Some characters in a string are illegal and you have to use escape character. An escape character is a backslash which is followed by the character that you want to insert. For example, double quotes. For example, you want to write this sentence. For example, x equals to welcome to my actually programming land channel, and I want to use double quotation marks in order to highlight these two words, programming land. And if I use these double quotations and if I run it, you see an error. Why? Because it is actually considering this sentence as this string and also this string, and here programming land is actually invalid syntax. So how can I correct this mistake? I have to use escape character, which is a backslash. And if I use a backslash here and also a backslash here, and if I run it again, there is no error. And if I print it, print X, you see it is correct. There are also other escape characters in Python. For example, backslash n if you want to go on the next line. For example, here I use backslash n, and let's see, it went to the next line. And if I want to, for example, let's delete this one, and now it has more meaning. So you can use backslash t in order to add more space. It actually works as a tab, and you see here there is more space, and also other escape characters. There is also another method that I want to show you, which is find. If you want to find a character or a group of characters in a string, you can use find. It actually finds the first occurrence of the specified value. For example, in here I use x equals to, let's change x to, for example, z equals to x dot find, and I want to find, for example, welcome in this sentence, and then I want to print z, and as you see here it represents 0 because actually welcome starts with 0 index in this text. And if I want to, for example, find my in this string, and you see it actually returns 11 because actually my starts with index number 11 in this string. Now you have all information that is needed for actually working with strings in Python. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, don't forget to subscribe it. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it. It will be a great support. Bye for now.